I was born into a world on the brink of death, and there's nothing I can do about it. At least, that's how I was conditioned growing up. All of us are constantly exposed to the tangible threat of our global climate crisis. But what's underrepresented is the psychological impacts this has had on whole generations of humanity. It's more than just a climate crisis. It's an existential crisis. If we're made to think that the planet is dying, and furthermore that we are powerless to change it, finding the energy to care about anything becomes quite difficult. This growing nihilism is seeping its way into mainstream culture, especially for Gen Z, who have been constantly told since the day they were born how desperate our environmental problems are. This is part of why fast fashion can be so successful despite the obvious harm it does. At this point, everyone knows it's bad, but they just don't care. More proof of pessimism's popularity can be found in the rise of cyberpunk media as the logical conclusion to unbounded industrialization under profit-driven systems. Even more prevalent are the constant cycles of nostalgia, revealing that we would rather look back in time than deal with the apocalyptic prediction of our future. But what if there was something good to look forward to? A future where technological advancements and the power of industry can be used for the good of mankind and our planet. Cyberpunk is a prediction of how the world will look if nothing changes. But Solarpunk paints a much more optimistic vision, one that I personally think is worth fighting for. So why isn't Solarpunk as popular as Cyberpunk? There's a lot of reasons. Primarily being that to create the beautiful landscapes promised in Solarpunk would take an extreme amount of work and collective action. On the flip side, being pessimistic is easy because it doesn't require any effort. Studies even show that defensive pessimism can be used to decrease anxiety. Our brains also respond quicker to negative stimuli than positive ones. So choosing Solarpunk literally means overcoming our own biology, which as you can imagine is quite difficult. However, change becomes easier and more realistic when it's undertaken by a group. As we know from history, such collective movements need universal aesthetics to bring people in and unite them for a common goal. The problem with Solarpunk is that it has a visual identity crisis. Its lack of media representation and emphasis on region-based symbols make it difficult for unfamiliar audiences to find anything to latch onto. Fashion is one of the most universally understood visual mediums, since we all wear clothes. The current fashion system is a major contributor to environmental destruction, but clothes also have great potential as an aesthetic medium to represent Solarpunk values, in both form and function. If the clothing utilized by Solarpunk participants can live as examples of sustainability in practice, as well as shift to foster a common aesthetic framework, then these garments can be a major tool in catalyzing the eco-conscious revolution we so desperately need. So today, I will attempt to provide the foundations for a Solarpunk wardrobe, one that can grow into the wardrobe of the next fashion revolution. Now, to make sure we stay authentic to the movement, I first want to cover what Solarpunk is and its origins. It's a relatively new term, only dating back to 2008. A blog post written by John Robert conceptualized Solarpunk as a new fiction subgenre evolving from steampunk. The emphasis stays on technology, but with more practical implementations and modern contexts. The solar part of the name refers to the power of the sun, both as an influential symbol and source of energy. The suffix punk denotes the movement as countercultural, rebellious, post-capitalist, decolonial, and overall against the mainstream. Because of this, the movement is often associated with leftist ideologies, although there is no one defined stance. The main pillars of Solarpunk include renewable energy usage, sustainable technology, social equity, a do-it-yourself ethos, and an overall anti-pessimistic attitude towards the future. Other important themes include fostering community and collective action. Furthermore, the aesthetic typically stresses the importance of a harmony between nature, humans, and technology. However, critics will say these nature-heavy aesthetics can be used as greenwashing to cover up the real problems with small but pretty solutions like just planting a couple trees. But if your solution to sustainability is the same as Mr. Beast's, it should be pretty obvious you took a wrong turn somewhere. There honestly aren't any thorough solarpunk depictions in the media, and the most popular one is actually just a commercial for yogurt, which takes us back to the greenwashing issue. Other popular examples include the MCU's depiction of Wakanda and Miyazaki projects like Castle in the Sky, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and Future Boy Conan. Hopefully one day we can get some better solarpunk depictions, and if you know of any I missed, definitely let me know in the comments. So moving past the lackluster representations in popular media, we can take fashion inspiration from the same place solarpunk takes its inspiration, such as art movements and architecture. Art Nouveau is a go-to for solarpunk artists. One of the primary ethos of this early 1900s movement was to make art functional, or make functional items into artworks. Clothes are items that can provide both utility and beauty, which makes them the perfect canvas for Art Nouveau styles. This style in question contains natural forms inspired by the environment, curving lines, and a sense of dynamism or movement, like in the associated whiplash curves or through asymmetry. It also visually tends to display plants, flowers, feminine figures, birds, and other beautiful creatures. The combination of these motifs with hand lettering techniques made Art Nouveau the foundation of graphic design as we know it today. With the attention to natural forms, emphasis on function, and the incorporation of techniques using modern tools, it's easy to see why this is a strong visual guide for solarpunk. Another era that heavily inspired solarpunk is the arts and crafts movement, which was a reaction to the Industrial Revolution and ironically Art Nouveau as well. The grappling between when to accept and when to reject technology in art is just a small part of solarpunk's identity crisis. Regardless, arts and crafts is starting to see a modern resurgence as a reaction to generative image models. The original movement attempted to reform design and decoration to fight the declining quality standards that came with faster manufacturing. Think about fast fashion versus haute couture. Artists, artisans, and craftsmen are at the center of this movement, and consumers are pushed to support these local, independent master craftspeople over their mass-produced competition. This emphasis on quality is crucial in clothing if we want things to last a long time, and therefore lead to less waste. Architecture is another major part of solarpunk, and full of its own design elements that we can use later for fashion inspiration. In artistic renderings, futuristic buildings are often seen adorned with green plant life. While green walls and roofs can have positive environmental and aesthetic effects, it veers into eco-fantasy and even greenwashing. Realistically, the major environmental problems of cities aren't solved just through green urbanism, but with gray urbanism, like improved public transit, renewable energy stations, and efficient housing. In case you aren't familiar with these terms, green urbanism is a holistic approach to sustainable city planning by integrating nature, compact development, electric public transit, and circular material flow. Gray urbanism, on the other hand, is the actual foundations and infrastructure that make up entire cities. It's important to strike a balance between both. A famous example of small-scale solarpunk architecture is Michael Reynolds' Earthship's housing projects. These are off-the-grid living structures made through local and recycled materials. They're designed to passively heat and cool, as well as foster self-reliance through incorporated gardens. His pilot projects in New Mexico inspired communities all over the world, where people use their own construction techniques and locally available materials. Because of this, each house looks very different, adding another element to solarpunk's visual identity crisis. Now, this is an issue that cyberpunk doesn't face in architecture, as brutalism has come to define the genre. We can also look to Bauhaus as an example for how architecture can define entire eras. This method of designing structures came as a reaction to World War I, but eventually trickled into furniture, art, design, and even fashion. This tells us why it's so important for change to come with a common aesthetic, so that it can be widely adapted, translated, and easy for anyone to recognize and grasp onto. With that being said, I want to provide a solarpunk fashion guide, not as an end-all be-all list, but as a starting point for a conversation that can hopefully give rise to a more compact, universal vision of solarpunk. Pick me up and bring me back to life. Color is noted as the first thing people look at when shopping for clothes, so we'll start with it here too. The primary color of the solarpunk movement is green, representing harmony with nature. Another important color is yellow, to represent the power of the sun. White is also prominent because it can represent the bright, optimistic, and clean view of the future. Light green, blue is another nature-inspired color, in this case representing water and all the animals that live in it. Solarpunk pretty much aligns with all earth tones in general. Now this summarizes the typical colors of solarpunk, but I want to propose the addition of gray. This color can represent gray urbanism and also the realistic side of the technology it will require to create a more sustainable future. After all, solarpunk is a blending of nature and technology, so we have to include elements from each. Now we move on to silhouettes. Instead of fashion that is overly tailored or needlessly beautiful, the clothes of solarpunk have to be shapes that prioritize function and freedom of movement. Because of this, wider silhouettes are necessary to allow room for our bodies to move freely. You can also think of typical workwear or streetwear silhouettes that are historically proven to provide everyday utility. Asymmetry can be used sparingly for artistic flair and to allude to the dynamism of Art Nouveau. In line with comfortable silhouettes, solarpunk also needs comfortable textures. Fabrics that are both smooth to the skin yet resistant to wear and tear are crucial to balance aesthetics with practicality. Rougher textures will also come naturally over time through distressing or repairing, and help to embody the punk side of solarpunk. For more interesting textures, you can think about the feel of things in nature, like tree bark or plant leaves, but achieving these tactile experiences often comes at the cost of sustainability. The most obvious patterns and symbols for solarpunk are anything taken from nature, like leaves, flowers, and butterflies. On the other side of the coin, you can use basic technological imagery like gears and wires. When it comes to tech though, you should probably try and find inspiration from renewable energy imagery like solar panel grids and wind turbines. Another pattern to make use of are the curving lines and whiplashes from Art Nouveau. Finally, and most importantly, solarpunk drives us to look back to our roots and bring our unique regional motifs and cultural symbols or fabrics. There's plenty of examples of this in fashion already, like Madras cotton, serape, ikat, wax prints, and Harris tweeds. The overarching themes of solarpunk can also help guide the styling of our outfits. The primary visual theme is a juxtaposition of technology and nature, so in our outfits we can likewise blend natural fabrics with high-tech wearables. Solarpunk is also biophilic in general, translating literally to a love of nature, but alluding more so to the fact that there is an ever-present connection to Mother Earth. Another thing to keep in mind is perpetual optimism. We should be dressing to feel good and inspire good feelings in the people around us. Bright colors and wide silhouettes can help convey these positive vibes. As per usual with these aesthetic videos, I'll leave a solarpunk fashion Pinterest board in the description if you need starting points for your own inspiration. While solarpunk has these vague aesthetics, it's important to remember this movement is all about action, not just performance. So in all honesty, the functional side of this guide is more important when it comes to making an actual impact. The aesthetics are merely helpful for making the movement recognizable to onlookers. First up, we have materials. Generally, solarpunk lends itself to natural materials for their vast array of positive qualities and low environmental impact. Think about fabrics like cotton, linen, wool, and silk. There are also some lesser known natural textiles like hemp, jute, and cashmere. These fabrics are durable, breathable, hypoallergenic, and free of microplastics. You just have to make sure they aren't modified with harsh chemicals, synthetic dyes, or other harmful finishes. The epitome of a solarpunk textile may just be biomaterials like mycelium leather and algae fabrics that are completely biodegradable. All that being said, synthetic fabrics aren't the devil they're often made out to be. Outerwear brands like Patagonia use extremely durable synthetics to ensure their products can last years. This can make one synthetic coat much more eco-friendly than having to buy a dozen wool ones over time. As technology innovates, synthetics have the potential to become even more eco-friendly too, as seen in mono-air fleece, which reduces the microplastics released through washing. Now, sustainability doesn't stop at the textile level, and ethical garment construction methods are just as important. Like the arts and crafts movement, quality is critical. We need to promote slower fashion with products that can last longer by not cutting any corners in production. DIY and upcycling are also both ways to be solarpunk at home and give new life to waste materials. It's also a fun way to express yourself and practice new skills. I'm actually wearing some upcycled shorts right now that I made in a previous video. I don't know if you can see these. Just watch the video. One of the biggest paradoxes of solarpunk as an aesthetic is that the most solarpunk outfit possible is the one you already have in your wardrobe. Buying something new just to fit a certain look if you don't actually need it is just contributing to the problem of overconsumption. But if you do need to buy, do it consciously and slowly. Secondhand buying or gift economies are also ways to ethically consume under solarpunk ideals. And once you do have a garment, the key is to make it last as long as possible. To do this, start by actually reading the care label for proper laundering methods and overall treating your clothes with the respect they deserve. If they do rip or fray, you can learn to repair them at home to extend their lifespan. If they are damaged to the point of no return, think about upcycling them into something new or using them as rags. If your clothes are made of natural materials, they can also be used as kindling and eventually fertilizer. You can also donate or share your clothes if there's something you really do need to get rid of. Now we can better understand why solarpunk has an identity crisis. Solarpunk isn't really an aesthetic at all. It's more of an action, a tangible movement towards utopia. Framing it as an aesthetic creates a problematic paradox. Aesthetics are best suited to consumption and performative action, which goes against everything solarpunk stands for. Just because something is green doesn't mean it's good. In fact, real progress tends to look quite ugly. High-speed rail or affordable and efficient housing may not look pretty, but will do so much more for the environment than a green wall at some mega corporation. And the technological aspect of building solarpunk cities still requires things like resource extraction, construction, and centralized power structures to get this done efficiently, which are all also kind of ugly. And it's hard for people to want to be a part of a movement that's ugly, hence the need for pretty aesthetics and thus the paradox. Solarpunk desperately needs to find a balance between the aesthetic beauty and actual working solutions for progress that is both visually and practically worth striving towards. Aesthetics are obviously not solutions, but they can make solutions look more desirable. They can also work as visual promotion for movements in order to grow and attract new members. A major critique of solarpunk depictions is that they are unrealistic eco-utopias, but I'm not sure they were ever meant to be predictions necessarily. Cyberpunk is a prediction because it presents a realistic logical conclusion of what would happen if we don't change any of our current systems. Solarpunk is the dream that arises from this dystopia. It is a vision meant to be aspirational and inspirational. Its power is not necessarily in its realism, but in its optimism. The burgeoning solarpunk movement provides an optimistic view of the future and an underlying ideological solution to the existential dread caused by a climate crisis resulting from unbounded industrialization. However, the lack of solarpunk exploration in media and its region-based practical examples have given the environmental movement a visual identity crisis, which prevents people from latching on. In this video, I talked about some functional guidelines for solarpunk fashion, which are important but lack flair. I also talked about aesthetics, which have the potential to provide this flair, but are not universal or even that unique. I think further work needs to be put into building out the world of solarpunk, not in fiction, but in reality. The movement needs a more cohesive visual identity if it ever wants to grow beyond small communities. And this can only be achieved by working together. So let's start some discussions in the comments. We'll start with a simple question. What does solarpunk fashion look like to you?